Now, in the third session, we are mainly going to focus on learning dynamics, how learning takes place, how internalization takes place. We have already discussed how the learning takes place in the when we were discussing the perceptual framework theories and the and the worldview theory. So we proceed further, and before I discuss the theory of learning, which we have derived from the Holy Quran, I would like you to go through some of the Western theories which are more known these days in the learning circle, because we are following the West blindly. Right? So I'll just put the theories for you to reflect upon the difference between the Quranic theory and the Western theories. The West actually, as they start from assumptions, and as they progress, they keep on researching and they keep on refining their theory. Their theories keep on changing because they are based on assumptions. Our theories do not change because they are based on the most secure principle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Holy Quran or nature. So they remain same all the time. Maybe the definitions are little altered with the time because of the changing circumstances. But basically, our theories are not time bound. They are for all the times. So that's the difference. But I would like you to just reflect on what we are going to discuss about the Western theories, and then we will, inshallah ta'ala, go to the theories as have been derived by from the literature of Allama Muhammad Iqbal, who had derived his thinking or his concept of Khudi from the Holy Quran itself. We see that this, as per Gestalt, the definition of learning is the basis of learning is to gain knowledge after observing the whole structure. Responding towards the entire situation is learning. See, so if you recollect the model of perceptual framework that we discussed, March and Simons, and the Alparslan Akajing's model. So this was quite reflected over there. So the basis of learning is to gain knowledge after observing the whole structure, both internally and externally. Right? Responding towards the entire situation is learning. I mean, it's not learning, is not in packets or pockets. It's the wholesome learning, which is actual learning. That is how Gestalt defines learning. And if we go to Kurt Lewin, he says the field view of learning, the learning as the direct cognitive organization of a situation. Motivation has a significant role and place in learning. This is also very important. Inshallah, when we look at Iqbal's theory, you'll be amazed that way back in early 20th century, he was defining these things. We go to Woodworth, who says the process of acquiring new knowledge and new responses is the process of learning. Again, if you reflect upon the March and Simon's perceptual model, you get the same thing over there. March and Simon perceptual model is not a very common model, but that is quite close to the NLP model of learning. If we study the NLP model of learning, that is very close to March and Simon's model. So that is why because it's very easy to understand, so I have adopted March and Simon's. Skinner says learning is the process of progressive behavior adoption. Very important, as we had seen, or probably in this slide, in this session only, we'll see how Rumi, the famous Sufi of the 12th century, defines the effectiveness of learning, right? So learning is the process of progressive behavior adoption. If the learning is not affecting your behavior, that means the learning is not taking place. It is basically internalizing learning, which is actual learning. Then if we go through the last century and we get different theories in learning. They are basically of three types. One is behaviorism, which is most focused on stimulus and response. And as Pavlov had experimented on the dog, he says that if you create a stimulus again and again, you get the same response. And repeated actions are actually what causes change in behavior. This was a very basic theory. This was challenged by cognitivism, which is focus on the idea. I mean, basically, cognitivism focuses on the idea that students process information they receive rather than just responding to a stimulus, as with behaviorism. Very important. I mean, it is not, human beings are not like animals or dogs or something which just responds to stimulus. Human being is a thinking animal, is a thinking entity. Human being analyzes the situation and keeps the whole scenario in view and then responds, right? Or he internalizes the learning. So it's very important. It is more learner focused. Learning is more learner focused than the environment focus. Okay, I mean, in an environment also, if you're living in an environment, it may affect you, it will affect you. But all the stimulus that you receive from environment, you will analyze as per own thinking set, and each person has a different thinking set, and he will respond according to his thinking patterns of thinking set. Then we see constructivism coming up. This is, you can say, just an extension to cognitivism, where it is said that the knowledge is developed on the previous knowledge. It is not like blank slate and developing knowledge on that. The knowledge basically is developed on the previous knowledge that we already have, and it is unique to the individual learner. Each individual learner will learn according to his perceptual framework or according to his mindset. It is very important. If you recollect, or when we I think we have already we have discussed the ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already pre-programmed us to realize He is being our Rabb, Allah to be Rabbiko. Then we see humanism coming up with human scientists like Carl Rogers and Maslow, and then we have lately Kolb's theory as well. So humanism basically defines that people have a natural desire to learn in order to achieve self-actualization, right? It is a natural desire. Inshallah, this you will see in Iqbal's theory in more details. Every single human being possesses a desire to learn, and his desire to learn carries him stage-wise upwards, like the need hierarchy theory of Maslow, right? And we finally, as per Maslow, our final need is that of self-actualization. Anyway, that was Maslow's theory. I'm not going to discuss Maslow's in detail here, though I have challenged this theory in my PhD, and Alhamdulillah, my teacher was none other than one of the students of Maslow's friend. He had met Maslow, uh, and he was, mashallah, impressed, and he gave me A in that. Anyway, it is not the outcome that is most important part of education. It is the process of learning itself. Okay, it's very, I mean, the whole process of learning is very important. Outcome maybe, that is dependent upon what the human being, how he reacts. But the most important thing is that a human being is programmed to learn and programmed to process information, whatever he comes across. The students themselves should be in control of their learning, and it should be achieved through observing and exploring, right? Or the learner should be the focus of learning, right? Not the teacher. The teacher should be an encouraging role model, motivating, guiding, and supporting students on their own personal journey. So this was humanism, basically. And then we see Cole coming up, that is in 1984, when he came up with this model of experiential learning. And he starts with concrete experience, or when we move through the cycle, a new learning is embedded in us, right? The new learning, and then the human being reflects on the new learning, right? The new experience, and then he develops develops abstract conceptualization of the new learning, interpreting and learning from the experience. Okay, and then he goes to the active experimentation mode, where he have alternate alternate methods or alternate applications to its learning, trying out what has been learned. And he developed, after passing through the experimentation phase, a concrete experience is developed, right? One cycle, and again that new experience leads to the cycle, and as per Cole, this keeps on going, and while a human is moving through the cycle, the experiential learning keeps on growing, or man keeps on learning. Very interesting model, but alhamdulillah, again, I'll see, we go to Iqbal and see how he describes this.